have a potential of 1,700 of biomass. I wouldn't want to emphasize biomass because we have got to save our environment. The strategies of and the policy of government is to move everybody from using biomass and move into renewable energy. And if it is not renewable, for example, the previous speaker talked about moving into nuclear, which I'm passionate about, because we have a big potential to move into nuclear. So we can actually make everybody move from using biomass and we move into other sources, including those ones which Felipe talked about: liquefied gas, biogas. We have all those potentials to make sure that we move into clean energy. We are assessing the strategy for the development of green hydrogen too, and I know in this conference we actually have those who are going to participate in one of the discussions on biogas. Not biogas, it is a hydrogen. We have a huge potential to produce not just hydrogen, but green hydrogen, meaning we can produce hydrogen through clean sources of energy without getting into the other potential which the PS talked about. Petroleum, which we have. In order to ensure harmonized planning in the renewable energy resources, Uganda partners with a number of entities such as International Renewable Energy Agency, and His Excellency the Ambassador talked about it in his presentation, which is spearheading the discussion on energy transition towards renewable energy. The energy transition agenda is key in mitigating negative environmental impacts, and more so for our country, deforestation and so on. But I'm excited here, the Minister of Water and Environment has got an ambitious plan to regreen Uganda. It means we're actually taking care of our environment and also the climate. The ministry has finalized the development of the national energy policy, as the PA said, and we are moving to cabinet to have it approved. The policy addresses a number of emerging issues, including aspects of the energy transition. We should not be left behind in the discussion on energy transition. Although we are predominantly in the green energy sector, we must continue thinking about it, and we must improve it, and we must define strategies how we can tread in a good direction to reduce the effects of climate change. As part of its endeavors to promote the renewable energy, my ministry recently gazetted the biofuels regulations that will support the implementation of the biofuels by which will implementation of the Biofuels Act 2018. You know, we had the act before, but now we have the regulations to implement it, and it's urgent that we start the implementation of the of biofuels. The government has also put in place mechanisms of reducing the high dependence on biomass for cooking through promotion of clean cooking technologies. Felipe talked to it, even the PS talked to it. So for emphasis, we are moving towards that. Innovative ideas, especially from you, the youth, which will enable us to move into clean energy and into clean cooking. When I was coming here, I passed through the show, and I saw certain technologies which are not seen before, and is coming from you, the youth. My ministry will support you if you have innovative ideas. Similar to that one which I saw, I called one of my commissioners and said, I want this one recorded and should be followed and supported. So youth, we are looking at you for innovative ideas. Some of you are still at school, you are still in universities. Use that opportunity to come up with innovations in the energy, especially renewable energies, and my ministry will support you. The government will continue to build the local capacity and increase skilled manpower to innovate, manufacture, operate, repair, and maintain energy systems so as to enhance adoption of clean energy options in our country. And this is a challenge to you youth. The opportunity is developing skills. Government feels bad to export domestic workers, but would wish to develop the skills and export skilled manpower. So the ministry and government supports development of skills in the energy sector. And the act which was amended in electricity has particularly come out clearly on need for research, need for developing the technologies. We should move out from being end users of technologies. We must participate in developing the skills and the technologies, especially in this new area of development in the energy. As the energy transition is taking shape, products may appear in our market that need to be checked for quality and safety. And this one is critical. On the first day, we were talking about energy efficiency. What our appliances can save energy. And this one, when I talk of need for quality, safety, and security, this one is core in the energy development for our country. So the ministry is collaborating with the various agencies of government, for example, National Bureau of Standards, to protect Uganda and to protect the environment. We are developing standards. We are going to enforce standards of the appliances that may enter the national market. Government will work with several other partners also to develop flexible financing mechanisms to support the deployment of renewable technologies in our country. While we are exploring finances, flexible finances, government is already making steps towards enabling the financing of development of renewable energies and its adoption and use. We know there is a gap in accessing financing for renewable energy development investments. The available financing modalities have not been suitable for renewable energy and energy efficient technologies deployed so far in our country. As a result, we have seen small-scale businesses in the renewable energy industry, but would wish to have more small businesses developed. The government, therefore, has established the Uganda Energy Credit Capitalization Company to support the credit facility for the renewable energy businesses, small businesses. Take interest in this. They may participate in discussions. Yesterday they were there. But if they are not here today, as I passed through the exhibition, they are actually there. And please take interest, especially you, the youth. That's one area for you, the youth, to take interest in, and also for the population of Uganda, especially the communities. Because this one is targeted especially to enable households to access financing for renewable energy appliances. Through the Uganda Energy Credit Capitalization Company, governments continuously providing financing mechanisms to the private sector through initiatives such as financing intermediation for off-grid access, with the objective of increasing off-grid solar electricity in rural areas. Uganda Energy Credit Capitalization Company is providing working capital facilities and extending lines of credit to the participating financial institutions for on-lending to small companies. This is an area I would wish everyone here to take interest in and explore. Little is known about this company. This is the first time we're actually talking so strongly about it, because as the PA said, she talks about a World Bank funded project. One of the areas we are going to put money from that project is to this company. So the youth, those innovations that I talked about, it is not that we don't have funding, so please take interest. I also wish to point out investment opportunities that we have in renewable energy and also the climate. I found it necessary to share with you participants some of the investment opportunities that the sector has to offer, and I'm sure this will be elaborated in the discussions that we are going to have today. Apart from a few of us, like the representative of the Prime Minister, I would request that all of you, especially the youth, stay to listen to the discussions. There will be so many opportunities that are going to be talked about. These include private-public partnerships for the development of large and small generation projects, including mini-grids, to meet the growing demand of power for our country, development of private-owned power generation and transmission projects, which we have actually enabled to happen through the amendment of our Electricity Act 2022. You can now get involved in generating power and also transmission, and you can even go to distribute it. Contribution to equity financing of power projects, participation in the engineering, procurement and construction EPC contracts in the planned projects, supply of equipment for upgrade and expansion of the national transmission network, and participation in the development and promotion of the different energy technologies that include solar homemade systems, solar water pumps for irrigation, solar water heaters, solar dryers, solar cookers, pressurized electricity cookers, and so many others. Those are the opportunities that you have. You can trade in them, you can import, and so long as they meet the standards. But for now, I would wish to encourage innovative ideas. Investment in Uganda is supported by the country's enabling environment, characterized by abundance of natural resources, which I talked about, the growing market, and the market which we are talking about, considering the position of Uganda in the East African region. if we can develop these technologies, we can actually tap to the greater market of the East African community. Good infrastructure which is being put in place, political and economic stability, liberalized banking and financing systems, stable legal and regulatory frameworks, and most importantly, we have the skilled human resource. And when I talk of a skilled human resource, it is to you youth. Many of you are holding relevant qualifications. So I'm proud of you, but let's use those skills for economic development of our country. To conclude my speech, Uganda strives for energy integration so as to maximize exploitation of these energy resources, both renewable and critical renewables, which include petroleum for sustainable development. As highlighted above, the country presents enormous investment opportunities in renewable energy and in related areas. Renewable energy currently comprises the greatest percentage, over 90% of the country's energy mix. We shall continue to give it due attention and make it available for the population. As the world transitions to renewable energy, Uganda is already ahead of everyone else, as I said, because of the potential that we have as a country. The government has put in place an enabling environment for investment in renewable energy. We therefore encourage the international and local private sector to take advantage of the investment opportunities that we have in the energy sector. I call upon all our partners here to be part of the energy transition agenda by providing technical and financial support to the efforts being championed by government. There was an announcement that we are going to sign an agreement with Total Energies. I'm making an appeal to my friend Felipe that let's do it tomorrow. We are on a run, as I actually stated earlier. I had to go for a COVID test and I'm running late. So tomorrow I will have all the time. So let's do the signing, and I will invite all the participants here to be here tomorrow to actually see the signing of that important agreement. With this, I would wish to thank all of you for listening to me, and I would wish to take this opportunity. It is a rare opportunity to invite the representative of the Prime Minister to make her speech. So, my sister Minister.
Thank you, Dr. Kasai, my colleague, the PSs, Your Excellencies, the ambassadors, colleagues, members of Parliament, our development partners, the civil society organization, all the private sector members, the younger people, the media, ladies and gentlemen. Namuyangu Kacha Jennifer is my name, State Minister in charge of Bunyoro affairs. Bunyoro is in the western part of Uganda, where the oil is found. I serve in the office of the Prime Minister. I am here to represent the Right Honorable Prime Minister of Uganda, Nabanja Robina. She wanted to be here in person, but at the last hour, she was invited by the Speaker to handle something of an emergency nature. So she had to look for an alternative. And I'm also privileged to have been the person sent here. I am pleased. I am now reading her speech. I am pleased to join you this morning, it is afternoon, for this important conference on promoting the production and use of renewable energy in Uganda. And I want to thank the Minister of Energy and Mineral Development, the development partners, as well as the private sector and civil society organizations for organizing this conference. Ladies and gentlemen, the theme for this conference is renewable energy for sustainable industrialization, inclusive growth, and economic recovery. And this theme is timely and relevant. As we recover from the effects of COVID-19, it is important for us to plan for our energy needs in a long-term manner and to exploit all sources of energy to ensure sustainability. As you are aware, over 80% of our people still rely on traditional biomass for heating and cooking. They are still cutting down trees for firewood and charcoal. This is a very serious matter. A few weeks ago, I was chairing a meeting of senior people and asked how many of them were using electricity to cook food at home. I was shocked by the response. The majority said they use charcoal and firewood, with a handful saying they use gas. This was a very serious eye-opener to the magnitude of the problem. Our strategy, therefore, must be to ensure that our population migrates to cleaner energy in order to address the challenges of deforestation and indoor pollution, among others. There is no doubt that renewable energy will continue to play a key role in the country's energy mix. We must ensure that we develop technologies to produce energy that protects our environment. As a nation, ladies and gentlemen, we believe that the different energy sources, including petroleum, will continue to contribute to our energy needs for the foreseeable future. I know many of you have followed what is happening in Mozambique now. The Caribbean, Pacific, European Union Joint Parliamentary Assembly made an amendment on a resolution on climate change. And this amendment was to consider the importance of fair phase-out and gradual transition from fossil fuels to renewable energy. Ladies and gentlemen, Uganda is pursuing an energy mix that includes renewables and critical non-renewable energy sources. Our target is to double the share of renewable energy within our national energy mix in the next few years. There is a deliberate effort by government to ensure that the population has access to clean energy for use in homesteads, institutions, and industries. As we pursue poverty eradication and income generation programs such as the parish development model, for those who are coming to Uganda, the parish development model is a program that is going to support households generate money in their homes. So as we pursue that program, it is important that we include provision and access to clean energy and electricity to the population. At the international level, as the world meets in Egypt next week for the Global Climate Change Conference, also known as Conference of Parties, or COP27, the message from Uganda and Africa is that our energy security can only be addressed through energy integration, including use of both renewable and non-renewable energy solutions, while ensuring low carbon emissions by deploying clean technologies. Uganda is endowed with vast energy sources, including hydropower, biomass, geothermal, solar, hydrogen, and wind energy. Of course, not leaving out nuclear energy, which we must exploit fully. Our Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development is at the forefront of this drive. As the country continues on the road to urbanization, more waste is being generated. The urban waste in Uganda is approximately 70% organic and therefore biodegradable. We need to use technologies that will harness energy from this resource so that it is no longer a waste but a rich energy resource. In that respect, government is promoting private-public partnerships and other financing instruments to turn such waste into a resource. Ladies and gentlemen, I cannot end my remarks without mentioning that we also have oil and gas, which we expect to start flowing in 2025. And as part of the commercialization plan, the country will develop an inland refinery that will produce significant LPG, that is liquefied petroleum gas. This will also contribute to our desired goal of increasing energy sources. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this meeting is therefore very, very important, and I look forward to hearing about the practical outcomes that will enable us to meet the energy needs of our people. Ladies and gentlemen, before I conclude, this is now me saying those, especially those who are coming to Uganda for the first time, God created Uganda when he was in his moods and provided everything here. So don't only end in this conference, take off time to tour Uganda. Go and see what is here, and it is only here, not anywhere else. The beauty of the country, the natural resources we are talking about. Don't be scared by Ebola. That is in just a small area, and we have handled it very well. So friends, I welcome you to Uganda. Be relaxed, feel free. Take off time, like I said, to go and see the beauty of this country. With these few remarks, it is my pleasure to declare the Renewable Energy Conference 2022 and Expo officially open for God and my country.
Ladies and gentlemen, once again, let's clap for the Prime Minister. In the interest of time, as earlier alluded to by Honorable Okasai, that we understand that
a strong word, but actually for me it fits pretty well. I grew up in Norway, where all of our electricity is provided by clean energy from hydropower. So my passion when I was young, and there's a lot of young people here, was actually to link myself to construction machines in order to stop development of more hydropower plants. That's a long time ago. Yes, I was arrested once, and my father grudgingly paid my fine. He disagreed, of course. And then it moved on. Norway found oil and gas in the North Sea outside our shores in the 1960s. And that actually contributed to change Norway from being one of the poorest countries in Europe to now one of the richest. And one thing I would like to underline is that because we had very able politicians, we actually managed a system to make sure that the proceeds from this oil and gas exploitation got to the people. Distribution is important. Then I moved on. My former job was ambassador to the international organizations in Paris. And there, my really favorite part of the job was to work with the International Energy Agency. During my tenure there, that organization was developed from some kind of consumer oil-saving organization to reaching out to almost everyone. And I was really happy to be able to chair some working groups on to see how we could work with Mexico, who joined, and then China. That was, of course, stopped when Obama left office in Washington and Trump entered. But we made an effort. And finally, I'm here in a country that is a little bit resembling Norway, with the hydropower bases and also with the oil that you have and you are going to start exploit. So when I leave here, I think I will follow my dream and my passion and go back to Paris and work with the IEA to sort of expand the work of the IEA also to Africa, moving from one beautiful country, said by the representative of the Prime Minister, which I absolutely agree, and to another one. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, and we will be coming back to you on how you look at supporting the emerging markets in terms of meeting their clean energy targets for everything financing. Your Excellency, the Ambassador of Sweden, Your Excellency Maria Håkansson, we do a lot of work with the Swedish Embassy, but also the government of Sweden. We've seen a lot of support in areas of solar power, but also access to clean energy. And I recall the first time we met, I think we came into our roles at almost the same time, and I could see the passion with which you wanted to support us in ensuring we can improve on our access into energy agenda. So just walk us through that passion that we shared at the time, and it's 1 year since. It will be good to also see how you look at Uganda in terms of meeting our clean access agenda.
Thank you very much, Shireen, and thank you for inviting me here and to TAD for offering us this session. It's hard to compete with the story of Elin. I have no arrest to brag about, but and maybe to change the perspective. Of course, I feel strongly personal, but it's of course also Sweden and the Swedish government who has the passion about energy in this case, and I mean, I would say partly obviously because we are here and has been for a long time as a development partner to Uganda, and energy development is obviously an integral part of economic development, and our partnership with the Ugandan energy sector is sort of based in our commitment to support Uganda's socioeconomic transformation. But then I have to say also, of course, it's a little along the same line, I think, that my friend Elin here outlined, that we feel that we also have and experience and competence and knowledge that we can share, and that's why I think that we have the work we are doing with the government here is so stimulating, because it's covering a lot of things, and I think that's also what, for me, makes it so incredible, inspiring to work. We work with our development cooperation, we work with our Swedish companies, we work with capacity building, so it's a very broad way of working, and I feel like the energy sector and what we do in the energy is sort of this really brilliant example of win-win situation for Sweden and Uganda, and where we can sort of look a little ahead. And there was this, or is still, sort of a slogan of working beyond aid, and I think that is so much what we are doing in the energy sector, and working with the number of different actors that we do here, with the government, of course, but also with UN system, with civil society, with private sector, with academia, makes it, of course, very stimulating. But then I think we all know, I mean, it's very much linked, especially the renewable energies, to the climate issue, and I think we are, most of all, I hope, will feel rather passionate about that issue now, when we know at least the young people in Uganda, in Sweden, elsewhere, feel very strongly about this, and this is clearly linked, of course, to the renewable energy and the work we do there. So I will stop there to give space to my colleagues here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and we'll come back to discuss issues financing. Now, coming to His Excellency Matthias Shaw, the Ambassador of Germany. I recall the last time we were together in Namayingo, Norway, launching a mini-grid, the passion with which you did that, but also the support we continue to get from the German embassy through GIZ, but also KfW, the mini-grids we've launched in Lamo, quite some work with the Embassy of Germany. So your passion is evident, but I will also give you a moment to speak to it. Your Excellency, please.
Thank you very much for inviting me to speak at this important event. My passion has two roots. One is our common shared future and that of our children, and the other is our reason for being here, that we want to support Uganda and its development. Now, the Western world has not exactly been a great example when it comes to environmental protection. We have walked down this road of fossil fuels. China is still doing it big time, and we have started paying a big price tag, environmentally, nationally, also health-wise, for humans and animals, and of course for the climate change we are observing. So Uganda is starting to utilize its oil, and it is perfectly entitled to do so, no doubt about that. What we would like is that the environmental impact is taken very seriously in this project, and that it is not considered to be a long-term solution, but Uganda remains open, flexible, and ready for the transition to renewables. In Germany, we have something called Energiewende. It means changing direction in energy. And this is a huge task, which is in the German media every single day. And there are very heated discussions about how this should be done. It requires new investments in offshore wind, solar, photovoltaics, energy storage projects. And you have to balance this with the current energy demands. So this is nothing easy and nothing that you can do quickly. Ironically, Russia is helping us, because using energy as a weapon forces us to do this much more quickly than planned. When I was serving in Addis Ababa before coming here, I learned from a very smart Cameroonian economist, Vera Songwe, the head of the UN Economic Commission for Africa, about the relevance of energy for development. The Ethiopians had asked her, what do we have to do to make really big, substantial strides in development? And she had done some research with her team and found 3 countries in East Asia who had formerly been at a fairly low income level, and they had made giant strides. The reason for that, for them being able to do this, was that they had more than 90% electrification, and that is something I think Uganda still needs to work on. The figures vary. I hear different figures, but I think it's safe to say you're at maybe about 40% of the population has access to some sort of electricity, and Germany is here to help you improve that as fast as possible. Thank you so much for now.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. We'll get back to learn a little more from Germany on how to handle issues of the just transition. I will now come to the acting head of cooperation at the European Union, Mr. Derrida Lennart. We do a lot of work with the European Union. We're being supported in many areas, including the ongoing sector reforms that we're undertaking. So we'd want to hear from the European Union how you view our energy access agenda and briefly on the plans that you have regarding the same.
Thank you. I'll just pick up with the rest to say about the passion in energy. It's a passion about partnerships, because the energy sector is unique in a way that it is about physical interconnection. It is also about interconnecting different services, interconnecting people in capitals with interconnecting people in faraway issues. It allows to have mobile phones. It allows to be part of the global world. It allows to interact, interchange. It allows also to trade and to thrive. And I think therefore the element of partnership in the energy sector is crucial for us. It's also about entering into the new dimension, combating the effects of climate change. All these things are included in energy that is an essential vector for development, and therefore it is essential for us to be in this sector. I can obviously refer to the mentioning of the Honourable Minister before, when he was mentioning that an additional potential of 12.5 gigawatts adding to the electricity mix of the country. One can only stand in awe for the ambitions that the government has and the plans that it is rolling out. Obviously also with the focus on renewable energy, we've been discussing geothermal energy, wind, biomass. So all these different components are there to make Uganda a real energy powerhouse within the region. With such a potential, obviously, also comes a responsibility, because there is a lot of energy there. It also needs to be answered, as electricity produced needs to be consumed. And so there is also an important element, apart from the organization of the electricity sector, also an effort to be done in catalyzing the use of electricity, moving away from the use of simply charcoal, biomass and others, but also industrial use, developing industrial applications. And that is why not only we focus on promoting production, but also promoting sustainable use of energy. We've heard the interesting approach with regard to production of green hydrogen, but then it could lead to green steel, and then to a whole development of an economic ecosystem around green energy. And that is why it's so important to have these developments and sound planning from the ministry. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A hand clap, please. Encourage my panelists. Thank you. Okay, so thank you very much. We've noted the issue around partnerships, but also handling our developments in a responsible way, and the role of green hydrogen in this green economy. So those are some of the areas that we will discuss in detail. Coming back to Her Excellency Eileen, of course, where we sit as an emerging market, when you look at our level of access to electricity in Uganda today, we are talking of 57%, 19% on grid, and 38% off grid. And there is this global movement on the energy transition, and I know that Norway is one of those countries that is almost 100% renewable. So we'd want to hear from you what lessons as an African country that would learn from Norway on a just transition. We are preparing for COP27. Africa has prepared its position on the energy transition, and it is important that as we do that, we understand how the rest of the world is looking at this. Your Excellency, please.
Thank you very much. Actually, first I would like to say that I learned a lesson when I had the honor and pleasure to have the Ugandan Minister of Energy to Norway. We were talking a lot while we were attending a huge energy conference, and what I learned was that I think energy transition is not an objective term. I mean, we say it and we think that everybody else would mean the same way that we do. Transition from what to what? In Europe, as my colleague Matthias said, we have been heavily relying on fossil fuels for a long, long time, with the implication that has caused. Because it was there, the investment was already there, and it was reasonably cheap and stable, and because of that, investments in renewables were not that huge until now. And so the main driver for transition in our countries has been to curb the CO2 emissions in order to fight the climate change that we now experience globally. Transition in Uganda and most countries in Africa is different. The starting point is different. Where do you transit from? Africa is and will remain a minor contributor to CO2 emissions, estimated to be 4% in 2050, 4% of global emissions of CO2. In Africa, 600 million people live without access to electricity. 907 million people rely on polluting fuels to do their daily cooking. As clean energy sources are unavailable or too costly, charcoal is the answer. So transition in Africa, as far as I understand, means moving from charcoal to energy sources that do not result in chopping down the forest, which is a very important oxygen producer to fight the CO2 emissions. So transition in Uganda means safe cooking for households. Transition in Uganda means dependable energy supply for people, firms, and industries. And so the driver in Uganda's transition is not emissions, but energy security, as has already been said many times. And then it's a little bit same but different, because the war in Ukraine turned the energy market upside down. Fossil fuel becomes increasingly expensive worldwide, and creating new and growing demands for alternative energy sources fast. So that, as Matthias also was saying, could actually spur sort of development in a more renewable direction. So despite the fact that we come from different realities, this situation is common. The global energy crisis has taught us the hard way that putting all eggs in one basket, to rely on one or a few energy sources, is dangerous. That goes for Europe and it goes for Uganda. So diversification makes sense for all of us in order to fight this vulnerability. Investment in and development of several energy sources seem to be the way forward for all of us, and we already heard from the representatives of Uganda that is the way they are going. Hydropower, solar, natural gas, oil, biogas, to mention a few. So I would just say that Norway has been working closely with Uganda for 15 years under the Oil for Development project. This is not about extracting oil, but to create necessary institutions and rules and regulations, including environmental concerns. And in my capital, we are now working to expand this project to wider, to actually include renewables as well, and we hope to be able to work with you in the future on that as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. That sounds like a white paper from the government of Uganda. We are quite aligned on the way the government of Norway is looking at this just transition, issues of energy security, issues of diversification, but also energy integration as we work at decarbonizing our energy production. So thank you very much. We'll now come to Her Excellency Maria, and I would want to understand how the government of Sweden looks at this just transition. Your Excellency, please.
Yeah, thank you. And while agreeing with everything that's been said, maybe to add another perspective into it, that also look at the green transition or just transition as an opportunity. It's easy to look at it as a burden, but to look at it as an opportunity, and then also to ensure that for recovery strategies actually keep us on track towards Agenda 2030 and all the goals of the Paris Agreement, and that we actually use it to build a sustainable and inclusive economy. And while Russia's unjustified and unprovoked war against Ukraine, of course, highly impacted energy and food markets, and it's been a major blow to the global economy, at the same time, a recent report from the International Energy Agency shows that this global energy crisis is also causing profound, long-lasting changes that actually could speed up the green transition. And if going to Sweden, we have set very ambitious goals of becoming the world's first fossil-free welfare state, reaching net zero emissions by 2045. And we think this is, of course, important to keeping the planet and life safe. But this requires, obviously, changes in society and shifts in system and technology to achieve cleaner air, better urban environment, safer energy supply, but also investments, obviously, in renewable energy, energy efficiency, and energy efficient infrastructure. But I think it's, and maybe to say that Sweden actually is one country which has a high energy per capita consumption, but our greenhouse gases, for example, are still low, and thanks to a large part of renewable energy, we have sort of been able to successfully decouple carbon dioxide emissions from the GDP growth. And still not compromising public welfare and also increasing the prosperity of the country. So I think it's important, and I think somewhat Matthias touched upon in the beginning, that we also learn, and I know when we were talking about the recovery from the COVID pandemic, there was a lot of talk about building back better and greener, that we actually use the knowledge and use it as an opportunity. I was in Stockholm last week for a trade and promotion conference for Swedish diplomats, and it's a lot of talk of green transition as an opportunity, as a comparative advantage, something that will drive economy and not as a burden to the economy. So maybe just as a complement, of course, to the challenges and of course the little different starting points that we all have, but to sort of change that mindset, and then I think we can accomplish a lot. And Uganda is blessed with a lot of renewable resources, as is Sweden and Norway with hydropower. So I think you, in many ways, are very well situated for this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, and we can't emphasize enough to look at the green transition as an opportunity and not a burden. So that's a very critical message that we are taking away with us. Your Excellency, Matthias, just walk us through how the government of the Republic of Germany looks at this just transition as you support our development programs.
Just energy transition is part of the Sustainable Development Goals, such as reducing the impact of the use of inefficient cooking fuels on health, especially on women and children, but also powering productive industries in rural areas, modernizing agriculture, and leading to an overall improvement of living conditions. So, one important aspect, I think, is a mindset change. You need to realize that you can push the button and the lights will go on. But what you're doing is you're using a valuable commodity. At the moment, Uganda is producing more electricity than it is using, but that will change when the demand rises. So I think that is one important aspect that and also you have to try to achieve a mindset change that energy efficiency, that saving energy, has a value in itself and is not just nice to have, but a must-have when the energy becomes scarce. And what we're trying to do, and in Germany, but also here in Uganda, what Elin already mentioned, is diversification. Here we have supported various hydropower dam projects, the installation of more than 40 solar mini-grid panels. You mentioned the ceremony we had in Lamu together. And also we're promoting energy-efficient, cleaner cooking styles.
Together with the German cooperation, the Swedish cooperation, and all the other member states, many of them present, but not French, Dutch, even other member states that are adding components to it, such as the Czechs in digital, Estonians in digital. So energy allows us to tap into the full resources and the full community of the EU in order to develop this. And that is our goal, to have that impact. I just wanted to chip in on the just transition. It's easy for me to talk about the just transition in the climate perspective, as the potential here is so vast. It makes sense simply to develop these resources, for instance geothermal, to have a long-lasting energy at a locked-in price that can be advantageous, and not being dependent for your state household on fluctuating oil prices. Then you can sell it on the market, but you are not dependent for your own energy household on this. And if you look what that has done to other countries in Africa, being completely dependent on this on your household, it is something that needs to be taken into account, and that has that element of just transition, and where we all want to strive for. I would also like to point out that the just transition is not only climate related, it is also related to creating a renewable energy sector inside Uganda, where the companies can participate. That is about offering technical and vocational training in the solar systems. It's also about developing a private sector and creating facilities that this private sector can develop inside Uganda. I will be launching a new facility, Electrify, to finance private sector initiatives for 5 million euros right after this session. So these different elements together with Team Europe and our member states, it's about having call for proposals for renewable energy. It's about training programs that we are doing together with the Belgian cooperation. The German cooperation also has such programs. So these different things together are there to make this transition just in quite a number of ways, and not just only one. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll now go through our last round of questions targeting financing. Today, the world has expended about $150 billion to ensure we are deploying clean energy. And of that, only 20%, as I had earlier indicated, has been invested in the emerging markets, including Africa. And when you look at the projections, by 2050, in order for us to meet our net zero emission targets globally, we will require about $1 trillion. Now, as Uganda, in our national electrification strategy, we've already estimated for us to achieve our universal access target by 2030, we need between $4 to $5 billion. So in view of that enormous financial requirement, I would want to hear from Her Excellency, the Ambassador of Norway, how you look at financing this energy transition. What is the role of the private sector? What is the best partnership that we should be looking at as the government to be able to meet our targets? Over to you, Your Excellency.
Thank you very much. And now we are coming to the core of the discussion, which is also the most important and difficult one. And I saw a headline for this conference: Energy transition in emerging economies is highly hindered by financing, regardless of energy resource availability. That is an important notion, and it's true. And why? And unlocking more financing remains key to the energy future of Africa and Uganda. That's obvious. But today, economy-wide nominal financing cost can be 7 times higher in Africa than in industrial countries. And this makes it hard to find the finance, obviously. And why is this? The risk connected to financing is much higher in African countries, most of them, due to lack of infrastructure, facilities, institutions, laws and regulations, to mention just a few. But for Uganda, one important source for finance will be the oil pipeline. Incomes from the pipeline through Tanzania will provide investment funds that, if spent wisely, will actually create a new basis for investment. So in the meantime, what do you do? Because the oil will not come before, at the earliest, 2025, and I'm looking at Total now, among others. So it's still a need for investment. Private sector, government, you name it. And you mentioned, Irene, earlier the COP22 as a place to discuss this, and I'm pretty sure it will be discussed in a couple of weeks, or in 1 week actually. Funds were promised in Glasgow, well, they haven't been delivered yet, so we need to look into that, obviously. But this is mainly government funds, not private investments. I'm sure in order to do this, private investments are necessary, despite the risk. So how is that done? You actually, I think, mentioned the local content part. And then it comes to my mind just a question. It doesn't seem to be a great appetite by Ugandan investors to invest in energy and clean energy. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But from the Norwegian side, we are working on a facility that we will probably introduce in Sharm el-Sheikh to mitigate the risk of climate-related investments in developing countries. Our plan is to set aside $1 billion for guarantees. If private companies find it too risky and don't want to go into a market like Uganda, this facility could actually guarantee some of the investments if they go wrong. This would make it more or less risky for Norwegian firms to actually engage here. And I think also the UK is working along those lines. So that would be something to discuss in Sharm el-Sheikh. We are also working with other donors in the so-called Get Fit project. And this is a funding mechanism with the objective to attract private investment, for instance, by addressing barriers to investment in East Africa with Uganda as a pilot. And we have provided $30 million there. This is actually to sort of buffer the price that has been negotiated with the government, but which would make energy too expensive for users. Furthermore, Norway is working closely with Uganda on what I said earlier, oil for development. This is, as I said, not about extracting oil, that's done by Total and others, but to assist in developing the necessary institutional rules and regulation and financial and tax system. This would provide, we believe, more security to investors and at the same time establish a system to secure a reasonable division of proceeds between Uganda and the oil companies. That is what we did in Norway, and it worked well for us, and I hope it would here. And it's also with an objective to ensure systems that will make you able to somehow learn from our experiences, if you like, on distribution of wealth when the wealth is there to benefit Ugandans and not only a few. And another program regarding attracting investment is it's a problem actually about information system, and you said it in your intervention as well. Where will the investors find information they need to make decisions? It's the statistics, it's not very easily accessible, I'm afraid. Lack of consistent system of information, it's tricky, and in such a situation, a firm which is not big enough to take the risk might actually just walk back and not getting into Uganda because they don't know. So this is again institution building, and this is what you were talking about, that we from the Norwegian side would like to offer some financial support in order to task the International Energy Agency to create a specific report on all the background, the historics, and the sort of all the challenges that would have to be solved for Uganda. So this is an offer, and if you want us to do this, we will definitely be happy to fund this study. So as a sort of a background and a tool for Uganda to develop the systems and to actually get information out to foreign investors to make them happy to invest here. And I'm sure working with the IA in my former job and working with the energy side of Uganda here, this will be a very good cooperation. So I think that's my contribution. Thank you.
Members, a round of applause for Her Excellency. She has just announced a facility of $1 billion to support private companies in terms of providing guarantees as they venture into private investments in the energy sector. And this will be announced at the COP27. I think that should be applauded. But in addition, the support to enable us strengthen our information systems through the International Energy Agency, this is something that we'll definitely want to foster with you, and beyond the conference we will continue that conversation. I will move to Her Excellency Eileen, just walk us through Maria, all these aspects concerning financing and
it could be energy security, it could be economic development, or a mix. But whatever the motivation is, the time is now. As Maria said, it's urgent. It's not a good idea to say we'll look into that a few years down the road. The time is now for a solid commitment to invest in sustainable energy systems, affordable and accessible to all. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. And Mr. Lennart, please.
Thank you. For me, I think we all share the effects of climate change in different ways. So it's effectively something that is a global concern. And for me, it would then be partnership in order to find a collective solution to the problem. Thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we've all heard from the panelists. It's been an engaging discussion. And from the wrap-up, it's very clear that the issue of investment in renewable energy, deployment of renewable energy technologies will continue to remain high on the agenda for not just Uganda or the emerging markets, but the global world. And as we go to COP27, the issue of urgency, and I liked how the head of the EU cooperation wrapped it up. We are all sharing this single planet, and we all must be committed to its protection. So the urgency, the timing, very critical. But again, we are saying that this should be done in a just and fair manner, taking into recognition where each of us are in our journey of the energy transition. So with that, I want us to clap for the panelists for a job well done. And thank you all for being good listeners, and I hope you've picked a leaf and you'll continue to drive investment in renewable energy technologies, but also looking at a just and fair energy transition. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Let's clap for our panelists once again with the PS as well. Well done, engineer. That was great. And while we are having a panelist conversation, we had the rain, and we want to thank God for the good rain. We're now going for our lunch, but friends, after lunch, we are not going to reconvene back here, because the last time we reconvened, it took us roughly 40 minutes just to go in our breakup sessions. So after lunch, we are going to have the breakout sessions. And the first one, it's going to be in her voice. This is energy in hard to reach areas. And this will be moderated by Joyce Nkuyahanza, the senior technical advisor from the USAID. And it will be at in the Speak Ballroom. So you'll find the Speak Ballroom. That's where we're going to be. The other one will be this one, actually, yes. Then we have the Financing Energy Entrepreneurs and Markets in Uganda. Now this will be in the Jacaranda Hall. So the Jacaranda Hall, that's where you will be. And this will be moderated by His Excellency, this will be moderated by Mawood Watalet. And the other one will be North to South Technology Transfer. It will be in Ebony Hall. This will be moderated by Professor Samson Rakahire, the Directorate of Graduate Studies, Research and Innovations at Busitama University. Innovation will be in Mahogany Hall, just below here. In Mahogany Hall, after lunch, that's where we are going to meet with the innovators. And finally, the last breakout session, this will be the Emerging Technologies for Energy Transition, Experience and Lessons. Now, this will be in Acacia Hall. Friends, we're going for lunch. I want to thank the different excellencies, the PS, the ministers, and the government at large. As we're going for our lunch, please carry your laptop bag. Please carry your phone. Remind your neighbor, tell your neighbor, carry your laptop bag and phone. And we are going for lunch at 1:50. I expect you to be back at 2:50. We have strictly 1 hour to have our lunch. Please carry your laptops, anything valuable to you. I strongly believe we are good people, but you never know. It just rained. Have a good lunch.